I trust the movement. I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. 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 These times are poignant. The winds have shifted. It's all we can do to stay uplifted. Pipelines through backyards, wolves howling out front. Yeah, I got my crew, but truth is what I want. Realigned and on point, power to the peaceful, prayers to the waters, women at the center, all vessels open to give and receive. Let's see the system brought down to its knees. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm made of thunder, I'm made of lightning, I'm made of dirt, yeah, made of the fine things. My father taught me that I'm a speck of dust and this world was made for me. So let's go and try our luck, said I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. I've got my roots down, down, down deep. I've got my roots down, down, down deep. So what are we doing here? What has been done? What are you gonna do about it when the world comes undone? My voice feels tiny, and I'm sure so does yours. Put us all together, make a mighty trust the movement. I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen.
Wow, that was wonderful. Good morning and hello, everyone. I am Conrad Ayasi, and I have the privilege of serving on your board of trustees. Please know that whoever you love, wherever you are on your personal journey of faith or search for meaning, you are truly welcome with us. We're so grateful to have you with us, whether you're visiting or connecting for the first time. We come together in beloved community to grow in wisdom, to welcome and deepen relationships, and to act for a just and sustainable world. We recognize our responsibility also to be stewards of this land and to acknowledge that we do this with those for whom this is their traditional territory, the people of the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina and Stoney Nakoda. including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley First Nations of Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. In offering a land acknowledgement, we honor those who have long been stewards, and we accept our shared responsibility for being good caretakers. We acknowledge that treaties were entered into as a collaboration between settlers and the Indigenous people, thus making us all treaty people. I am a member of Calgary Unitarians because here I can have spirituality without threats of damnation and support without dogma. A survey of religions found that Unitarians are the most like-minded. I think this is because we are so united by our values and our principles and the issues of the present life. Today we have just one announcement. The bidding period for our time and talent auction ends on March 3rd. That's in 3 days, or next Wednesday. So get your bids in. And now over to the Reverend Deborah for the chalice lighting.
We light our chalice, as do our siblings in the Unitarian and Unitarian Universalist faith tradition do, to create sacred space as we gather. Today I offer words from my colleague, the Reverend Laura Thompson, which I have edited slightly. Across the distance, this virtual distance, the light from within me shines, sending love to all. Across the distance, your light is the fuel that warms me and helps me to keep my own light burning. This we do for each other. Together, we keep the flame of community burning bright. And I light our community flame. I really appreciate the prelude that we have this morning. Resilience has been our theme for the month, and Rising Appalachia just speaks to resilience, what it is, how we can learn to listen and add our voices to create a greater roar for justice. I extend my welcome also to each of you today as well, and I want to offer appreciation for all of the folks that are making this morning happen. I particularly want to acknowledge our amazing AV team, Mitch and Daria this morning, with Bob polishing up the service to go up on YouTube, and Ev for creating the PowerPoint. Thank you, Sheila Ward, for being our coffee host this morning. And if you have curiosity about our congregation or the UU Faith, I will be in one of the coffee rooms and invite you to join me if you are UU curious or you just want to say hello. I also want to thank the participants. Conrad, who you've already heard, and Meredith and Jeff, you will hear throughout the service. And from the worship arts team, Lynn and Kathy, thank you so much. And my final appreciation is to the other amazing program staff. To Sheila, our Director of Religious Exploration, who you will hear from, and now to our Director of Music, Jane Perry.
Good morning, friends. It's good to be together with you again in this virtual space. Even in the midst of pandemic, even amongst the challenges that each of us is facing at this time, there's so many things for which we can be thankful. And one of them is being together this morning on Zoom. So let's sing. We're going to sing a hymn called Sing and Rejoice. And this is one that can be sung as a round. We're going to sing it through together once, all of us together, and then 2 more times through. If you want to keep singing with me, you can definitely do that. If you want to try it as a round, let me come in first on that second pass, and then you follow in afterwards. Here we go. Sing and rejoice.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice.
That's a round.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice.
Good morning, everyone. It's so great to see you on this very bright and sunny morning. I've had a blind mishap where my window blinds fell down and I'm trying to move different places in my living room to not be in the bright light. So bear with me. I keep moving and then the sun keeps moving to follow me. So I feel like every bit of a ray of sunshine this morning. So you might be wondering, what are the children and youth up to this week? And in honor of the UN Unitarian Universalist United Nations Virtual Climate Change Conference that's coming up April 9th to April 11th, which I'm very excited about. It's virtual this year, so I encourage everyone to come out and register. Registration ends March 18th, and we will be submitting the links into this week's e-news as well for information on that. But basically, each spring, the Unitarian Universalist Office at the UN hosts a conference in New York to instill in the youth and adults a commitment to global engagement and the skills to take action locally to address global issues. So this is very exciting. And they have a sliding scale. And we also earned funds this year from our multi-faith calendar sales to help subsidize any youth who would like to come. So if you need help with that, just email me at DRE or Sheila@calgaryunitarians.ca and we'll get you hooked up. But I really hope you sign up to come out. And so in honor of that, today, the elementary are going to learn about sustainable food issues for their own homes and neighborhoods. And the youth are going to be looking at the sustainable food solutions that we're facing globally and have some room for in-depth conversation. So I'm excited about that because as many of you may know, I've been teaching all the classes this year virtually. And I've also had my buddy, Jacob Dowling, who is a University of Calgary student. And this is the area that he specializes in. This is what he's really excited about, is a lot of the food sustainability issues. So he's going to be with me in class today, and it's going to be a great one. So I'm looking forward to that. And now, as the sun is coming towards me here, I will pass the chalice on to our lovely Reverend Deborah Falk. Thank you.
When we come together in this gathering, this virtual gathering on Sunday mornings, we take time to tend the sacred bonds that bind our lives to one another, affirming that what touches the life of one of us affects us all. Today I will light our global candle for Maga, the Sangha Day, yesterday, which is when Buddhists, and this has been our religion of focus for this month and the focus for today's service. Sangha Day is the day when Buddhists celebrate both the ideal of creating a spiritual community and also the actual spiritual community which they are trying to create, which we create in this virtual space. In these moments, we seek to widen our caring ministry by sharing the joys, sorrows, and milestones in our own lives and in the life of our congregation. This morning, our thoughts are with all those seeking healing of mind, body, spirit, and relationship. We are all feeling the anxiety of so much uncertainty these days and the longing for physical presence. We know in our community and in our connections and beyond, there is suffering and loss. I invite you to just take a moment to either speak aloud or hold in the silence of your heart those individuals and situations to which you mourn, regret, and wish to send healing energy. And I invite you to speak aloud what is on your heart. May being in community be salve for the soul and ease sorrows and concerns. Along with life's sorrows and tribulations, there is also joy and celebration. We celebrate your presence here today, a joy to come together, and we welcome those along with us and the new folks who may be strangers who are becoming friends in our midst. And again, I invite you to join me in a coffee room if you have curiosity. We celebrate today those who have gotten or are scheduled to get their COVID vaccinations. This, for all of us, is a ray of hope. I invite you now to speak aloud or hold in silence those individuals and situations brightening your heart and that you are celebrating today. May all that has been shared here strengthen and renew the bonds of this beloved community in joy and in sorrow, in struggle and in success. May we together embrace life's blessings and withstand its challenges, in the sacred hope that we might grow stronger through both. Now, in recognition of what has been spoken aloud and held in each of our hearts, I will light 3 candles, one each for global recognition, for concerns and joys, and celebrations. I light our candles. One of our greatest joys is having members share their love of this community. Each year during our stewardship campaign, we have a chance to hear different voices. And this morning, Jeff Grutz has some words to share.
Good morning, everyone in Zoom land. My name is Jeff Grutz. I am representing our 2021-22 stewardship team and was asked to respond to 3 key questions. First, why the church is important to me. It's a place where I can join in a community of friends who have shared values. We have a common appreciation for that other church that is our great outdoors and our environment interconnectedness with the pleasures of our low impact travel modes to experience our natural surroundings, walking, hiking, skiing, and bicycling. Thinking alike is boring. Of primary importance for me is our framework for encouraging differences and seeking our own spiritual paths while providing engagement opportunities to share and discuss our learnings with each other. We respect each other for our differences. Thinking alike doesn't resolve issues. Diversity in all contexts does, and that is what I have found here. As a slightly aloof but still instructive example, where else could I have received an invitation for a motorcycle road trip with a scooterist, Bernie, a full-on sport motorcyclist, Brandis, and me on a gravel-style motorcycle. Now that's diversity. Secondly, how being a member has affected my life. It's a place where two of us have been able to share our spiritual journey. I acquired valuable life skills for communicating via Zoom. Don't be a talking head. Look at the camera. Use hand gestures and vocal inflections. And lastly, what the congregation has meant to me, lots. Along with valuable key friendships, the best response is a recent example. This congregation has been a place for coming to terms with my grief. Exactly 6 months ago to the day, my spouse, Randy Lind, passed away. Through a process spearheaded by Reverend Deborah, I found a complete support network to maintain an inner strength through discussions with Deborah and compassionate congregational friends who've had similar experiences, delivery of caring food parcels, checkup phone calls, and importantly, an award-winning AV technical team, complete with our music director, TriUU, and a PowerPoint musician, to produce an incredible celebration of life event that truly honored Randy. I'll increase my pledge slightly as an expression of thanks for all this congregation has returned to me. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you, Jeff, for those inspiring words. Coming back strong, that's the theme this year for our stewardship campaign. I'm Meredith from the stewardship team, and you probably have received your pledge packet in the mail already. If you haven't, it's coming. Please take time to reflect on what Calgary Unitarians means to you and how it enhances your life. And then think about how you can support our beloved community with your pledge for the coming year. We do recognize that it's been very difficult, an unusual year. And remember that a pledge is actually not written in stone. It can be changed if circumstances change. But do try to be as generous as you can this year. And be sure to join in the service in 3 weeks on March 21st when we have our Celebration Sunday. We invite you to send in your pledges that day if you haven't done so already. And rustle up some chili. You can bring it, let it simmer during the service and bring it to the coffee hour, or just bring it during the service and join us to the coffee hour, because we will be showing our thermometer and how the pledges are rising. So thank you so much for considering your pledge this year. And now over to Lynn.
Good morning. Many of you will be aware that Reverend Deborah, Reverend Samaya, and I have been offering a World Religions program this year. Each month we learn about a different religious tradition. And this month, as Deborah mentioned, we've been exploring Buddhism. We end our month with a video presentation by a speaker from the tradition at our church services in Calgary and in South Fraser. And now Kathy Welburn will tell us about our speaker for this morning, Tracy Pickup. On to you, Kathy.
It's my great pleasure to introduce Tracy Pickup, the leader of the Zen Buddhist group and Sangha here which meets here in the church here since 2006, I believe. She actually is a member of the Order of Interbeing of the group in Plum Village, France, led by the venerable Buddhist monk, poet, and activist Thich Nhat Hanh. And she brought all of that wonderful spirit and spirituality to Calgary, where she has not only been an amazing leader, but promoted leadership in the whole group and each person, leading to practice mindful meditation through developing joy, love, and awakening, as the Buddha has taught through the tradition, and where everyone has always felt very welcome. I'm so grateful to her. Back to you, Lynn.
And now we'll center ourselves first with a reading from the Buddhist tradition that Kathy and I will do, and then we'll have a brief silence. And you are invited after the silence to join in the sung response if you so choose. May every creature abound in well-being and peace.
May every living being, weak or strong, tall or small, short or medium-sized, mean or great.
May every living being, seen or unseen, those dwelling far off, those living nearby, those already born, and those waiting to be born.
May all attain inward peace.
Let no one deceive another. Let no one despise another in any situation.
Let no one from antipathy or hatred wish evil to anyone at all.
Just as a mother with her own life protects her only child from hurt, so within yourself foster a limitless concern for every living creature.
Display a heart of boundless love for all the world in all its height and depth and broad extent.
Love unrestrained, without hate or enmity.
Then as you stand or walk, sit or lie, until overcome by drowsiness, devote your mind entirely to this. It is known as living the life divine.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe.
Blessings to you, dear Unitarian friends. My name is Tracy Pickup. I am the founder of the Wild Rose Sangha Buddhist community in the tradition of Plum Village Engaged Buddhism. I was ordained in the Order of Interbeing with the Dharma name True Fragrant Field. In our tradition, we invite 3 sounds of a bowl bell before a Dharma talk is given. And so we will listen to 3 sounds of the bell just now. The bell is the voice of the Buddha. It is the sound of the cosmos coming through the bell. It vibrates and brings us home. So when you listen to this bell, just allow yourself to breathe deeply and listen. Just listen to the sound, allowing it to penetrate completely through your body and mind. Relax and be at ease. Matt will now invite the bell. I hope you enjoyed the sound of the bell. When we hear the sound of the bell, we say a little poem to ourselves. Listen, listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true home. And I hope that you can find your true home sitting wherever you are and enjoying some peace and rest together. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today about the Buddhist teachings. My Buddhist community, the Wild Rose Sangha, has been gifted to reside in the Calgary Unitarian Church for more than 10 years. The openness of your community to provide space for us to practice our tradition shows how you demonstrate your own principles of inclusion, respect, and spiritual curiosity. In these ways, I know that you demonstrate what we would call interbeing. We are here because you are there. You are there in a way that includes us, and so we are a part of each other. Looking deeply at this interrelationship provides insight into what we both collectively value and choose to uphold in this world. It is humbling to know that in some ways we fit together and are embraced together. Such relationships can make each of us feel less alone and expand the horizon of what one imagines oneself to be. At the heart of our Buddhist teachings is this concept of interbeing. This is the sacred eternity of relationship. In Buddhism, we call this pratitya samutpada, or interdependent co-arising. It is not just that one thing causes another thing to be, but that all things come together to manifest existence. The great teacher who leads my community, the Venerable Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, says it like this: the one can be seen in the all, and the all can be seen in the one. One cause is never enough to bring about an effect. A cause must at the same time be an effect, and every effect must also be the cause of something else. Cause and effect inter-are. The traditional image that we would use is that of a net that has jewels placed at each intersection. Each of these jewels reflects and mirrors every other jewel on that net. In the one, all can be seen. In you, there are reflections of all beings. In all beings, there contains what you might call yourself. This gift of deep insight is the energy of relatedness, and it can be seen in many traditions and scientific understandings. The result of seeing things in this way means that we can feel universal love and compassion in an inclusive way. I wonder what a Unitarian would be without the gifts and insights from many other traditions. Where do your insights about inclusiveness come from? Buddhists like to contemplate these connections in everything they do and have a long history of developing practices that allow them to understand this more clearly. In our community, we have precepts that we vow to uphold, which are called mindfulness trainings. These trainings allow us to take actions in our lives so that we can live in a way that honors the deep interconnections of life. For example, we vow to uphold and honor living beings, aware that they are a part of us, so we do not kill. We vow to speak lovingly and kindly because our words affect the entire web of existence. This deep intimacy with all life shows us how to act, how to make choices, and how to understand the world. The ways that Buddhists develop this understanding of connection is not only through intellectual insight, but also through a kind of looking that arises from living deeply in the present moment. The net of cause and effect, which changes and is changed constantly, is only alive now, just as everything we can do can only be done now. In this deep present now, we somehow touch every other moment throughout the cosmos and then become even more alive. We might ask ourselves, how did the Buddha know this? The Buddha discovered these truths while sitting under a tree, what is often called the Bodhi tree. Named Siddhartha Gautama, he was a prince born in Lumbini around 623 BC. The story goes that he left his home and palace because he was so disturbed by the universal truth of old age, sickness, and death. He wanted to reconcile and end the disturbing suffering of these truths for himself. First, he learned many contemplative teachings from ascetic, forest-dwelling spiritual friends, and he mastered these techniques. However, he came to see that their path was too strict, and it did not lead to freedom from the kind of universal suffering that he had been seeking. He realized that he needed to listen deeply to his own mind so that he could find freedom for himself. He went off and sat under the Bodhi tree in deep meditation, and in the long night of sitting under the tree, he had a realization. He looked deeply and directly into his own mind, and he saw the ever-changing, selfless, and interconnected nature of all existence. We call this awareness enlightenment. He taught many people, both monks and nuns and lay people, people of all kinds, for over 50 years. And with his teachings, he expressed to them so clearly this kind of enlightenment, simply by speaking or being in their presence. And those people freed their minds and felt the end of suffering. The Buddha transmitted the teachings which are known as the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path that shows us how to end suffering. These teachings include the teachings of mindfulness and upright behavior, like speech and deep listening. These teachings were passed on through communities. These communities of men or women are known as sanghas. These sanghas lived alongside lay communities who supported them. Eventually, these teachings survived and are now living in our world today as Buddhist teachings. But they live in our world not because they are Buddhist, but because they are the foundation and nature of existence. Buddhism simply creates a container which brings to life what can be directly observed if we turn our minds inward and see clearly for ourselves, just like the Buddha. The Buddhist teachings and Buddhist sanghas make it easier for us to understand our own minds because they convey insights passed down from thousands of generations of people who have tested and tried out how to live in harmony and peace. Over and over again, we learn what these teachings mean for today. We pass these teachings hoping to relieve all beings from suffering. And this is essentially the path of a Buddhist, to teach living beings the insight of how to live in order to end suffering for everyone. Buddhism is a religion of the present moment. The intention of all the teachings are to be manifest for this present moment, just as it rises now. This does not mean that it throws away the past or ignores the future, but instead tells us that we have to learn, grow, and live in this moment because it is this moment that we have to live. The teachings have to stay relevant to what is happening today because today is different from any other day. In this way, the teachings grow and change just as life is growing and changing. If we cling to the idea about the way things should be, we may miss fully and completely what is present in front of us, and then we create more suffering. I want to share with you a story about Satsujo, which shows this present moment intimacy that can shake up our ideas about how things ought to be, even how a religious person ought to act. Satsujo was a special Japanese Buddhist woman. Her stories show her audacity to shake the traditional expectations of women in her day and what it means to be wise. She was born to a devout lay Buddhist man who was friends with one of the most fierce and insightful Buddhist priests of his time, Hakuin. She had studied with Hakuin when she was young, and he had acknowledged her as enlightened. He acknowledged that she had the kind of wisdom about how deeply connected all of life is and how to live from this wisdom. He noticed this about her when she was just a young woman. She decided not to become a nun, but instead to follow a more traditional route of marriage and children. She learned how to manifest her insight through her everydayness. She knew how to love her children and take care of the people around her. She did it with wisdom and boldness, and was known in her community for her straightforward and wise way of living. When she was older, one of her precious granddaughters suddenly died. In a moment of sadness, she grieved openly this beautiful child, tears streaming down her face. Right there in the midst of her weeping, an old man in the neighborhood approached her and said, "You studied with Hakuin. You're supposed to be so wise and enlightened, and yet here you are crying and making fuss about the death of a child. Don't you understand? You should stop this and lighten up." Satsujo had spent a lifetime practicing her Buddhist wisdom, right in the middle of her family. And she knew her own mind. She didn't hesitate. "What do you know?" she said. "My tears and grief are better for my granddaughter than any priest's incense and rituals." Right there, in the midst of her suffering, she was meeting the truth of life. She wasn't playing a game or pretending to be sacred. She was fully embodied in that present moment, weeping with the whole universe, as the whole universe weeps time after time in that sacred grief. Therefore, her tears were holy. It's not that she didn't respect the traditions of her community, but she also knew the wise traditions of being a grandmother. And that wise tradition of grandmotherly love weeps sometimes when grief arises. Sometimes it is hard to know who is wise and who is caught in their suffering. Sometimes we cannot tell, and we end up judging someone too harshly. In some ways, it is not our business to judge who is wise or not. We just get along with practicing our own practice. In this story, Satsujo was compassionate to her own grieving. She was also compassionate to the old man by showing him his misjudgment. In that moment, they both let go of their concepts and theories, and were there together in that moment of grief, misperception, and honesty. That day, she taught one more person the way to be free from their concepts and to live more intimately with life. Sometimes there is a lot to do as a wise grandmother, even when your granddaughter has died. Meditation is a practice that Buddhists use to cultivate this spontaneous engagement in the present moment. It has become increasingly popular in North America, and many people have tried it at least once. Of course, meditation did not start with the Buddha. It is, after all, human to want to sit in silence and turn the mind inwards. We can imagine that all cultures in all ages had some form of silent contemplation that allowed one to see more clearly. The Buddha himself was taught meditation from his ascetic companions. It was already a well-established tradition of human devotion and experimentation that had been passed down from generation to generation before the Buddha showed up. The mindfulness meditations that have exploded in popularity these days have their roots in foundational Buddhist teachings. For example, the Sutra on the Full Awareness of Breathing, the Anapanasati Sutra, as well as the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Satipatthana Sutra. If you look up these sutras and read them, you can see where the modern and secular teachings of mindfulness derive their insight. Many of you may have seen one of these serene Buddhist statues that I have behind me. I have seen them in many places these days. They're beautiful, cross-legged, half-smiling, lower gaze, upright male figures. They're very popular, so it's hard to imagine getting through this modern life without having seen a Buddha figure somewhere. Perhaps you've seen one in someone's bathroom or in the garden or on a front lawn. These Buddhist statues remind us of peace and serenity, a refuge outside the world of busy minds and the frenetic pace of worry. They are a physical representation of the state of meditation that allows us to be present without being shaken by the storms of the world. We look at such a figure and want what he has, even if only in our imagination. The fact that we want to invite the Buddha into our lives suggests something about our modern lives as much as it does about Buddha and Buddhism. It suggests that there is a universality of seeking peace amid the storms of life. There always seems to be storms, small ones and little ones, and somehow we get caught in them like a tiny boat on the waves. Whether it is a joy or a grief, there always seems to be waves, and we have to find ways to ride these waves. What keeps you afloat during the storms of life? The Buddha thought it might be a good idea to stop and sit down. That's why the Buddha is usually seen in a seated position. He gives us some inspiration to sit down inside ourselves and take a deep breath. And then another one. And then maybe sit there for a good long time until all the waves have settled. It can really be a relief. In meditation, we can have a kind of understanding that meets and harmonizes with the complex nature of existence. To be fully present with the changing nature of existence. The Buddha, as you see him on the altar, is at peace because he sees himself as a wave on the ocean of being, not separate from all the causes and conditions, not clinging to things that would make him separate, extra, or special, or different from all other things. He simply rises and falls with the conditions which are both him and not separate from him. This is what mindfulness in the Buddhist sense is intended to do, to become intimately aware of these rising and falling nature of conditions without being swept away by them. In Buddhism, there are people who live in temples full-time and depend on the lay community for support while they dedicate themselves to uniting with this inner peace. These are called monks or nuns, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. In these temples, their meditation, chanting, and bowing are dedicated to the Buddha and his practice of wisdom. There is another story that can help us understand what is really happening in the present moment, so that we don't get fooled by ideas. Dharma master Danjiang from the Tang dynasty lived in a temple with many monks, and one cold snowy night, the monastics became cut off from the outside world due to a large snowfall. I'm sure we can all imagine what that would be like. So, with depleted fuel resources, the monks became cold and hungry, and they wondered what they were going to do. They couldn't get out, nothing could come to them, they were stuck and cold. The old master began removing the wooden Buddha statues from the altars and putting them into the fireplace to heat the poor cold monks. The monks were shocked. The master was burning sacred objects, but into the fire went the Buddhas. The monks were warmed by this fire, and they were able to cook their rice and eat firewood, and firewood goes in the fire. However, when the roads cleared up and the snow went away, the master went down to the town and he bought more Buddha statues, set them up on the altars, and began praying to them. The monks had a hard time understanding. Was it firewood or was it a sacred Buddha that sat on this altar? Sometimes the Buddha appears as an image on an altar or a decoration in our home. But what is that Buddha pointing us towards? Sometimes the Buddha appears in our family, or our friends, or even in ourselves. How do we worship, and what is the most appropriate way to do this? This story shows us that skillful and appropriate actions at the right time and place are the most intimate way to live in wisdom. As Unitarians, I know that you have access to many traditions and teachings that offer insights into how to live in the present moment, so as to relieve the suffering of all beings. Whether it is direct action through engaged social justice activity, or through caring and compassion for individuals in your personal lives, I see how enlightened awareness streams through your community and enlightens many beings. It is a gift to be a part of this path with you as we experiment together to know each other deeply. I would like to conclude this talk with an insight from the first Buddhist nun, Mahapajapati. Her words show us how to dedicate ourselves to loving all beings, just as a mother can love her most precious child. The Buddha's mother died in childbirth. Her sister, Mahapajapati, took the Buddha in as a baby and brought him up as her own child. When the Buddha returned from his spiritual exploration, once he had become enlightened, he began teaching. And Mahapajapati was one of those people who listened to the Buddha, and she realized that his teachings freed her from her own suffering. So she took care of this little baby, brought him up, and then he turned around and ended her suffering. She decided that she wanted to dedicate herself entirely to following these teachings, and so she became the first Buddhist nun. One of the oldest Buddhist texts is called the Therigatha, which is the nuns' enlightenment poems. The first nuns offered their enlightenment poems, and they were memorized and then recorded. In Mahapajapati's enlightenment poem, she challenges us to walk the path as a mother who cares for her baby, as if each child were to grow up, become wise, and show everyone the way home. Imagine if we took care of every child like this. If we have this aspiration, then indeed the future will be beautiful. This is the sacred responsibility of a mother, but it is a sacred responsibility of all of us, because we are all mothers to the future when we live fully and lovingly in this moment. Thank you for listening to this offering on the Buddha's teachings. It is a gift to share what my teachers have taught me, and I hope it gives you some inspiration to keep learning and growing by listening deeply to the still, quiet mind within. A lotus for you all, Buddhas to be. We will now end with 3 sounds of the bell, again coming back home to yourself.
It's good to remind ourselves from time to time that the offering is symbolic as well as practical, for it is the contributions of each one of us that creates and sustains our community. The morning offering will now be given and received in the spirit of grateful fellowship.
Grounded in the message today of looking within to find our center and then to move out to be in service in the world, holding compassion for all living beings, including our beautiful Mother Earth. Let us sing this now with our closing hymn filled with loving kindness.
Thank you.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful.
as we extinguish our chalice and bring to a close this sacred hour, I offer these words attributed to the Buddha. Be ye lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves as to the only lamp. Take this light and the warmth of this community to sustain you through the coming week.
As we end our service time together today, we invite all of you to join us for our virtual coffee hour. To get to coffee, all you have to do is click on the link that will shortly appear in your chat area, and or you can copy and paste that into your browser. Let us sing together now our closing sung benediction, Spirit of Life.